Hello, my name is Cynthia Corser. Let me introduce myself. I am a mom of 4 kids, 2 boys and 2 girls. All are teenagers, and yes, I have a busy household. My teenagers are typical teenagers. They all have iPods and iPhones and laptops and the latest technology. I'm the same way. I have a tablet and phone and laptops. I love technology. I use my phone for everything. There are some days I couldn't do it without one. I am a full-time student, a full-time mom, and I work full-time. So I use my iPhone to keep track of everybody's schedules and keep everything straight. There are some days I don't know what I would do without my iPhone. But the question is, are smartphones making us dumb? Is technology making our kids antisocial, contributing to Asperger's syndrome and high functional autism? Tell me something. How many of you know your parents' phone numbers or what you're doing on the calendar tomorrow without checking your iPhone or your smartphone? How many of your kids play outside with other children? Probably not very many. My oldest son, Jeremy, was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome when he was at the age of 12. Like a lot of kids nowadays, my son played on video games a lot. In fact, he was obsessed with them. He played them all the time, to the point where he almost didn't graduate high school. If you argued with him, he would argue back. He would get into fights with other children about video games or on the video games. Despite him being a high IQ, he almost didn't graduate. He didn't care about getting his driver's license when he was 16 years old. The only thing that he cared about was staying at home playing video games. But despite at the age of 21 now, he rarely goes out and he doesn't have a girlfriend and has never had a girlfriend. I think that there are two things that are connected to Asperger's syndrome. I think Hello, my name is Cynthia Corser. Let me introduce myself. I am a mom of 4 kids, 2 boys and 2 girls. All are teenagers, so yes, I have a busy household. My teenagers are typical teenagers. They have iPods and iPhones and the latest technology. I'm the same way. I have tablets and phones and laptops, and I love my technology. I use my iPhone constantly to keep track of the kids' schedules as well as my own. I'm a full-time mom. I work full-time and I go to school full-time, and my kids are very active. There are some days I don't know how I would get along without my iPhone, but the question is smartphones making us dumber as a society? Is technology making our kids unsocial and contributing to Asperger's syndrome and high functional autism? Tell me something. How many of you guys know your parents' phone numbers? How many people balance a checkbook or even know the schedules of what you're doing tomorrow without checking on your phone? How many hours are your kids on video games or on their phones? How many hours are your kids playing outside or playing with other kids? My oldest son, Jeremy, was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome at the age of 12 years old. Like a lot of kids nowadays, he loves video games. In fact, he's obsessed with them, to the point where he almost didn't graduate from high school, despite the fact of him having an extremely high IQ. Video games ruled his life. And all he cared about was video games. He didn't want to drive, didn't want to get his driver's license. He doesn't have any friends his age, except for the kids that are online with him playing video games. Despite him being 21 years old, he's never had a girlfriend and rarely goes out. I got to thinking that there are two things that are connected. Asperger's syndrome is on the rise as technology is more prevalent. Kids with autism can't have a back and forth conversation. They don't make eye contact with other people. Kids with Asperger's syndrome have a hard time with change in schedule and often have complete breakdowns with small changes in daily routines, such as having a substitute teacher or a classroom being changed around. If these things happened in my son's schedule when he was in junior high or high school, usually I would have to go pick him up from school because he would have a complete breakdown in class. In doing research for this paper, I came across a similar story to mine. Mrs. Maycumber wrote about her accounts with her son and how he was obsessed with the video games to the point where he had a hard time letting himself eat or even use the restroom. I had similar issues with my son. With online video games like Xbox and PlayStation, kids are able to play with people without going outside, making it somewhat social, but you can't see people's facial expressions. Or you don't have to bother with the repercussions of hurting someone's feelings. If someone gets mad, they disconnect. There are always someone else waiting to play with you online. Kids don't have to see the hurt in people's eyes when you say something mean or cruel. Kids don't have to watch someone cry or deal with people's emotions. Therefore, kids learn to be callous and numb from emotions. I watched and heard my son be cruel to other kids while online because other kids challenged him and he had to be the best at video games. He didn't like to be doubted or challenged in video games, and he had to be the best. He was disciplined by me when I saw this behavior and removed from the video games. But that video games spilled over to reality. His aggressiveness spilled over to his junior high and high school years. I saw that my son couldn't react and couldn't understand people's emotions and reactions. He couldn't read people's facial expressions. My son was punched a couple of times because he was so obsessed that with video games or other conversations that he didn't understand that it was being completely inappropriate. According to the National Autistic Society, it's imperative to get kids in socializational therapy at young ages. Socialization therapy includes talk therapy and teaching young children to interact with other children at a young age, to learn how to have a back and forth conversation, to practice facial cues and body language. This is a difficult thing for kids to accomplish. There are a few socialization groups or therapists that run socialization groups. I live in a decent-sized town, and there is only one psychologist in the area that runs socialization groups with kids with socialization issues, such as Asperger's syndrome. I wonder if my son was younger, and I forced him to go outside more, and I never bought him a video game, or an iPhone, or a smartphone, or a tablet, I'm sure he would still have some issues, but I wonder if they would be as severe as they are today. If my son were forced to play outside at an early age, he would be taught, even though he hated it, he would be taught how to learn facial expressions and read people's facial cues and body language. Would he have struggled so much with change if he had to deal with it at more of an early age? So the question is, are smartphones making us dumber in society? Is technology making kids unsocial and contributing to Asperger's syndrome and high functional autism?